Hi everyone, welcome to the 15th webinar in 12D's training webinar series. My name is Lisa Stewart and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at 12D Solutions. 12D's training webinars showcase common industry challenges, taking a close look at industry best practices and how these can be implemented using 12D model software. The aim of these webinars is to upskill 12D model users and broaden their understanding of the capabilities of 12D model. We run these webinars regularly and record them for posting through our website and on YouTube. The first 14 webinars from this training series, as well as the first 18 webinars from our Industry Solutions series, are available on YouTube if you missed those. Before we get started, I'll just launch a quick polling question. You'll have about 30 seconds to answer about how often you use 12D Model's contour, smooth and label function, and then I'll show the results. Okay, it looks like most people are using it, but we do have some newcomers, so welcome everyone. During this live presentation, you'll be able to type your questions along the way, as shown on the screen, and we'll answer as many as possible throughout the webinar. At the end, I'll also read out some of your questions to the presenter for his insights if there's time. Today's webinar, Putting Contour Labels Where You Want Them, will be presented by Owen Thornton, who's been writing software for 12D Solutions since 2003. Owen has 15 years of professional experience in the civil and mining industries and is the original author of 12D's Drainage Network Editor and Drainage Analysis module. Over to you, Owen.
Thank you, Lisa. Hope you can all hear me. Today's webinar, titled Putting Contour Labels Where You Want Them, will focus predominantly on what it says, contour labels, but I'll take you through this panel, this contour, smooth and label function within 12D model in some detail, showing you some ideas and tips and tricks on how to make this function really work the way you want it to do. So particular attention will be given to producing contour strings with elevation labels, and this is creating them from tins and super tins. But I'll also show you other things such as separating the design and survey contours so that they show up in different colors, and also some people don't like on their steep areas of their design where there's lots of little contours bunched together. Some people don't like to show contours in those areas and prefer to show things like batter tadpoles or tick marks or something like that. So let's start off in 12D now. And here's a project with a series of design strings shown in purple, with a set of survey contours underneath. Well, it's actually a combined set of contours. Now, what I've got on the view here is just two models, a tin called Super Combined and a design called Design Purple. I've just coloured all of the design strings purple just for ease of display there. Now, so let's have a look at what's in this Super Tin now. Go Tins, Edit, Super Tin, and select my Super Combined. And there's four individual tins listed here. The survey tin, which is most of what we see here in terms of the grey contours. The design tin, which is all of the road strings. The des chan, which is all of the channels, all of these things that we see off to the side of the road. And the last one is the des basin, these two basins that are in the design as well. And all of those are set to mode replace and active. And so they're all part of the Super Tin. And I've just displayed this tin on the view and set the view settings to display contours. Okay, most people will be familiar with that. Let's take that tin off the view now, and instead of showing what's so-called fast contours, which we were just looking at, we're actually going to use that Super Combined tin to create contour strings. Now we can do it from the tins menu down to contour, contour, smooth and label. Now I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I've got a function already in my project here called contour, and I'll go through it fairly quickly to get started. Basically, we're going to create up to 3 models here, a set of main contours, a set of major contours, and a set of labels. Now this one's already filled in to The name of the function will be contour in lowercase. It's going to contour the tin called super combined, which is the one we just looked at. That's a super tin. And it's going to put the models of contours, or all the contour strings, into a model called contours with capital letters there. Every 200 millimeters, or 0.2 of a meter, it's going to name those strings with this name here. It's going to give them this color. It's one of the new shading colors in version 11. And it's going to assign a line weight of 0.13. You can also nominate to create major contours. If you leave this ticked off, it's just going to create contours at 200 millimeters, but we can do, at a slightly larger interval, we can create bolder contours, typically called major contours. We can give them a different name. You'll notice I've left the model for the major contours blank there. That means that the minor and the major contours will all go in the same model, which is simply called contours. So I leave it blank on the major contours. But I've said for a major contour increment every 1 meter, I'm going to give them a slightly different name there, give them a different color as well, and a slightly larger weight. I'll come back and explain the range and the labels, but let's go ahead and hit the process there and add on the model called contours on our view. Okay, and just to make it a little bit easier to see, I might use the new plan view properties icon here on the view and go to the models and set that design purple model up to the front again so that I can see my design strings on top of my contours. Okay, so most of you are probably familiar with that, and some of you are probably even familiar with labeling it there. At this point now, we're not looking at a tin, we're looking at contour strings. Each of these you can do an inquire on, and you can see that they're superstrings with a type like 2D, and they've got a level representing the Z value of that contour. So we're no longer looking at a tin here, we're looking at strings, and these sorts of things can be labeled and exported as contours rather than individual triangles. Okay, let's move on to the Labels tab now. And to say you want to label contours, we simply tick on Label Contours. Most of the time, you only want to label your major contours. I don't know if you can quite see that. I might make those major contours slightly darker, in fact, so it's a little bit easier to see. Oops. It's a little bit easier to see now. The bold contours, or the major contours, are slightly darker. Come back to the labels, tick on Label Contours. I only want to label the major ones, so these darker ones. I don't want to have text all over the screen. I'll put this one in a new model. I'll call it, what will I call it? I'll call it Contour Labels. And the label method here, we've got a few different choices, and some of them remove the lines and some of them don't. I'm going to recommend today this centered line facing uphill. This won't do any line removal because I'm going to use a separate technique to make sure that we can see the text without a contour line going through it. And the facing uphill means it's much easier then to detect the fall of the contours if all of the labels are facing uphill. So that's my personal favorite there. Decimal places, we're labeling the major contours, which are every 1 meter, so I don't need any decimal places. Text style data, I'm going to come down to, say, let's try text whiteout 2.5 millimeters. And let's just have a look at this, exactly what that was. A text style favorite I chose out of our standard list. Let's go and have a look at the details there. I'll click on the box there and go down to edit. And it's going to come out in Arial font. I might change the color here. Rather than using white, I might use a particular color that I use for text. It starts with PPF. I type in PPF and hit Control D. This lists all of the colors in our standard colored list designed for plot parameter files. If you're ultimately going to end up plotting this stuff, it's good to use these colors because these have all been carefully thought out and mapped to certain line weights. The one I'm going to choose now is called PPF Text Small. Select that one. The whiteout here has already been set to view color. I don't need to put a border on it or a border type, I don't believe. It's going to be paper units, and I would recommend paper units for this sort of thing. And in fact, in most applications in 12D, I recommend paper text. The advantage there is You may have a drafting standard that says your contour labels are supposed to be 2.5 millimeters on paper. You might not at this stage have any idea what scale your drawings are going to be at yet, but all you know is your drafting standard says 2.5 millimeters on paper. The advantage here is, regardless of the scale, we will always give you text showing at 2.5 millimeters, and you can change the scale and the text will get bigger and smaller. So big fan of paper text. At this point I might give the text strings a name as well. If we're interested in exporting this to another package, the name might be important, so I'm going to call this CNT label. Oops, can't spell. Try that, and hit set, and finish. Now, the simple way to do labeling, you can nominate a start distance. I might type in 10 meters and a separation of, say, 50 meters, and we can go ahead and hit the process button there. We'll add on that extra model. It's called contour labels, and we'll now see, and it's automatically added it on top of the contour labels model on the view, and because of the whiteout now, I see little text labels all over the place. You know, you can change the separation value here and hit process, and it gives less text. The start distance there, of course, all of these contour strings are individual strings, and especially when you've got super tins, they're going to start and stop all over the place. So where one tin takes precedence over another, you're going to get lots of little starts and stops in the strings. So this start distance and separation field, they're not particularly convenient to get the contour labels where you rarely want them. Okay, you can play with them to your heart's content, even with this label start and end, which I don't tend to use very often, and you'll really struggle to get a neat set of contour labels showing exactly and clearly what you want to show. So an alternative to that is this model of label lines. Now, some of you have been using this, I know. Some of you may never have seen it and always wondered what it was. Well, it is an input model, and I've got an example here already called Contours Z label lines, and these are the lines in orange that you see on the screen now. These are simply 2D or superstrings. They don't have to have any Z values at all. They just have to be superstrings, and wherever they intersect one of your contour strings, in this case the major contours, because I'm only labeling the major contours, wherever they intersect our major contours, I will get a label, and you can place them wherever you like. You'll notice that I've taken a copy of the road center lines. Now they're super alignments, and I've copied them to superstrings in this model called Contour Z labels. I'll just add that in there, Contours Z label lines, and that's now my input model, and 12D will look for that. As soon as you specify a model here, these two fields are ignored, so these are no longer used once you've specified a model here. If I go ahead and hit process now, I now only have labels where I've got these contour label lines. Now, because I added that these model of label lines on top, you can see it's showing over the top, drawing over the top of my text. Ultimately, these label lines won't be included on a drawing, of course, but I can come back to my properties panel, go to models, and send those to the bottom of the view, and suddenly I can see the labels nice and neatly there, and I get a label exactly where I've put it. For the road crowns, I have offset them slightly from where the road crown actually is. Wherever you've got a crowned road like that, you'll get a very sharp change in angle in the contours there. So by offsetting them slightly, you'll be able to better control the orientation of the text labels, because the labels are trying to align with the contour strings, and if you write on a sharp change in direction there, it can flip-flop and go either way. So I tend to offset those road crowns, and then wherever else you want to put them, you can move these around. So I could use my CAD move tool here and say pick on that vertex and move it over here if I wanted to, and hit process again, and suddenly my labels have moved over to there. Okay, and I could create a new string. Okay, and use my eyedropper tool. I think it's already activated anyway, and then just start putting in a new line there. If I wanted more labels here, I could do that, say, and then process again, and lo and behold, labels appear. So this is the main crux of this webinar is how to get the contour labels where you want them, and these contour label lines are the best way to do that. It takes a little bit more time to put in this model, but you can use them and reuse them and place them exactly where you want rather than using this start distance and separation. While we're still looking at this, I'll take those label lines off the view. We can use them in a variety of different ways, those label lines. But another thing that I'll show in this webinar is, most people who use this function are interested in creating the minor and major contours in different styles. And you can see I've used a light grey and a dark grey there to show them. And that's the way they typically get shown on drawings. Other people want to see coloured contours, showing a sort of a colour variation showing the heights. And that's easy to achieve as well. Coming over to the range tab here, I can say colour by range. I happen to have a range file all set up here, a height range file, href. Go down and have a look at that height range file. And it's going to, I've already pre-filled this in for the range of Z values in this super tin. And it's going to show the highest values in red, going through the rainbow colours there down to the lowest Z values in blue. And all I have to do then is tick on this tick box, specify the range file, hit process, and I get coloured contours like that. Now, some people won't find that useful. Other people will think, especially in the early stages of a project where you're getting to understand a new area, that these coloured contours are fantastic in a way of helping you understand understand the terrain before you get too far involved. So you can leave that on or turn it off as you wish. Turn it off again, it goes back to normal. There's other options there. If you want to colour the text labels and interpolate the colours, you can do that as well. And so that's one thing that this function can do. What a lot of other people want to do, though, and this is more the drafters and the people who are interested in drawings, we've got a single set of contours now showing both the survey and the design. Now, a lot of people on their drawings want to show the design contours in a different colour or bolder, say, than the survey contours, where we've got them all in one style. So the art there is to do a couple of different contour functions. Rather than a single contour function on a single tin, we'll do two different contour functions on two different tins. And the trick here is to choose the right tins. So let's turn off these contours now. And I'll start off, I've got one already set up here. It's basically a copy of the original contour function, but called contour survey. And this one's contouring a tin called super survey only. Let's have a look at that super tin here. Under tins, edit super tin. I'll choose that super survey only. And this is almost the same as the original super combined tin, except this time all of the design elements, the design tins, design channel, design basin, have been set with the mode holes. So if I were to add this tin on the view, this is the tin, mind you, super survey only, there's no contours there. If I toggle on tin solid, you can see there the tin is only defined where the survey exists and not any design element there. So that's a great way to contour just the remaining survey and don't put survey contours where you've got design. Okay, so I'll turn that tin off again. And we can produce contours here. This one's set to produce the contours in a model called Contour Survey. The major contours in the same model with the same interval. And the labels are going to go using the same contour label lines. They'll work just fine in this new tin as well. And we've got survey labels coming in there. So let's go ahead and hit process and add on those models. So that's contour label survey and contour labels contour survey, like so. So here you can see we only see contours where the survey exists and not the design. Okay, so that's the first part of the job done. The second one, we want to do the design only and not the survey. So again, I've got another function here called contour design, and this one's contouring another tin called super design. This one's pretty straightforward. If I add on that tin to the view, tin design, sorry, super design, I can see this tin exists only where there is a design element, whether it's the road or the channel or the basins. I can go to tins, edit super tin, and load up that super design. And I can see it's just the 3 design tins with mode replace to define this super tin. And here I've set this one up to color the contours, the design contours in green and dark green for minor and major. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. And the labels are all the same as well. Again, just using the label lines that we'd set up before. So go ahead and hit process here, and I'll take the tin off, and I'll add those contours on as well. Contour design and contour labels design. Like so. And here we have a combined set of contours. If we zoom right in though, you'll see that the contours are drawing over the top of the contour labels. Not exactly what we want. Again, come back to the view properties icon there, click on models, and we can change the order. And typically you want to put the labels at the top of the view, and you might want to put the design strings above the contours like so that we can easily see the design strings. And now we've got a pretty good looking contour plan with design and survey combined. The design contours are showing up in green, the survey contours are showing up in grey, and the original design strings are showing up in purple there. And all of the contour labels are exactly where we told 12D to put them, and you can see it's quite an easy set of contours to read. Okay, all of the contour labels are facing uphill, so we can easily tell the fall of the contours and so forth. Okay, I don't have a great deal more to show you about this function, but I just wanted to close with one little trick that a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of. We do get this request from time to time. Whenever you have contours of a design especially, you typically have batter slopes in your design that are fairly steep, and you have a lot of contours very close together, densely packed contours. When you come to put them on a drawing, they are very dense and difficult or they just end up being a big inky mess on a drawing. A lot of people instead will do things like create batter ticks or tadpoles. I've got a model here. It's not entirely complete there, but you can see in red I've got some batter tick marks all around my batters. I think I've missed a few areas in spots, but you get the idea. Some people would prefer not to have any contours at all wherever there are batter tick marks. It just makes the drawing a little bit cleaner. And the trick here, and we only need to do this to our design elements because they're the only ones with the steep slopes in this case. I suppose technically you could do it to the survey as well. But the trick here is to highlight all of the triangles that are steeper than a certain slope. Okay, so there is a tool available. I've got a screen layout file here that will do it for me, but under File, Layouts, Layout Input, I've got one here called Slope Analysis 2 New. Pops up this panel. If you want to know where this panel can be found, it's under Tins, Inquire, Slope, or Tins Tin Analysis Slope, I beg your pardon, and it's this particular one there. Now all of these are very similar options. They've all got subtle differences. I've chosen this one today. And what this one will do is it analyzes the tin super design using this range file. And I'll have a quick look at this range file. It's a range file that's where the slopes are specified as 1v in x horizontal. So it's basically going from a vertical slope here, 1 in infinity if you like, sorry, 1 in 0, up to a 1 in 8 slope. So anything that's steeper than 1 in 8 will pull out the triangle from this tin and create a face string of that triangle in this model called batters. Okay, so that's all we need to do that. And when you go ahead and run this one, in our tins view, we get this model called batters. And it's just gone through the tin. You can see it's picked up all the little triangles where the vertical curb is, and you can see there's tiny little triangles there, and everywhere else on our batter, where we've got batter slopes that are steeper than 1 in 8, it's put a little triangle there. And then it's just a matter of triangulating that. I've already done that, so if I can go to Tins, Edit Tin, and I've got a tin in here called Batters, which is simply triangulating this model called Batters and creating a new tin called Batters. And the trick here, because it's triangle data, tick on the triangle data tick box there, and preserve strings and weed tin. The advantage of, it's very easy to triangulate this data when every string in the model is already a triangle, because the nulling is already done for you. You don't need to worry about any of the nulling settings there. You just need to specify this data and triangulate it, and it's going to create this model called tin batters. Okay, and that's just a triangulation of that model. Okay, and this represents where the design tin is steep, if you like. Okay, and we can use that now to mask out elements of our design from the contours. So just minimize that. Oops. Try that again. There we go. If I come back to my design tin now, Tins, Edit, Super Tin, and choose my Super Design Tin, I can add that Batters tin in here and say, set the mode here to holes and update. If I add on that tin Super Design, I should say, you can see now I've only got the tin defined where the tin is relatively flat, or flatter than 1 in 8. Everything else, the tin is no longer existing. So if I come back to I can just click on Edit Func here on my recalc function and click on one of my green contour strings from Contour Design, and that pops the panel back up for us. All I need to do here is reprocess this, so just for effect, I'll remove that tin again off the view. And what I'm expecting to see now, if I hit Process, is that the contours are removed wherever I see the areas of red batter tick marks. Okay, so I've still got the green contours for the design in the flat areas, and I've still got the grey contours in the survey, and wherever the tin is steep, I don't get any green contours there. So that's another little tool up your sleeve, or another little trick up your sleeve for producing contours like that. Okay, that's about all I have to show. This is a very fundamental webinar. There's nothing particularly advanced here, and I just thought I would show a few features that not everyone might know about in terms of this contour, smooth, and label function. Okay, so I guess we'll open the webinar up to any questions and answers that we might have. Lisa.
Thanks, Owen. Yes, I believe we've got time for a question or two. Jared from Brisbane would like to know, what does smoothing a contour actually do to the contour strings?
Yeah, that's a reasonably good question, that one. It's not a feature that gets used very often, it's fair to say. If I were to pick on my design contours again, my design contours function, you notice I haven't ticked on this smooth contours one because the reason I don't is I like my contours to be true to the tins that I'm producing, and especially when you've got design tins, that's generally the way you'd want it. It's very rare that you'd want to tick on that. Perhaps there are some applications where you want to do this. If you've got very coarse survey data or something like that, you know, it's basically going to add extra points to your contour strings and I guess smooth them out. If I turn it on here and hit Process, you can see I get slightly rounded edges on my contours. Now, that may be closer to what ends up being built there, but it's not true to your design tin anymore. And there is another tick box here, preserve string points, which can do interesting mathematical things, but sometimes not necessarily what you want. If I rerun it like that, this has made sure that the contour now goes through exactly the right point on the string, but you can see it's put a funny little nose on the contours there as well. So there are some applications for this smooth and preserve, but they are relatively limited, and I generally recommend people leave them off, especially for design data, and get contours that are true to your tin. That's probably the best answer I can give you.
Sure, okay. Matthew in New Zealand would like to know about the easiest way to run tadpoles.
Okay, there's a few different ways. Probably the best way is to build it into the apply menu, but there are other options under strings, label, cut fill, and that's one I used there. But no, the new tadpoles in the apply MTF function are probably the best way. It's revised from, I think there's an old and a new method under there, and I'm not really the best person to demonstrate this one. But under the tadpoles there, there is a new method for producing these tadpoles, and that, I would say, is the best way to do it. You've got a lot more control than you had previously. Maybe that's only a version 12 thing. I am using version 11 here, so I'm not in a position to demonstrate that. But yes, there are a few different ways, and the newer ways are better than the older ways.
No problem. Sounds like it might be a separate webinar topic for 2017. I've just got one more question I'll put through to you now, I think. Lou from Sydney would like to know which 12D modules are needed.
That one is an easy one. You don't need any particular modules. It comes with the base. All of the functionality I've shown you here comes with the base module. So, yeah, everyone has access to it who has access to 12D.
Perfect. Thanks, Owen, and thanks to the audience for your questions. Sorry to those we couldn't get to live today, but we'll answer you by email later. The recording of this webinar will be available in coming days through our website and our YouTube channel. Our final webinar for 2016 is an Industry Solutions one next week called 2016 in Review. Our 2017 webinar series, both training and industry solutions, will be kicking off again in January, so keep an eye on our website for details of those. We'll also continue to keep you posted through email and social media. If you need to contact us in the meantime, our details are on the screen now. That concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for attending, and we hope to see you at future webinars.